Welcome to Did You Know with Richard Utley. During this 1-hour program, join us as we take a look at today's headline news, Richard's views, history, inspirational interviews, and much more. Did you know this program airs every first and third Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube? Here's Richard now. Sit back and enjoy today's featured presentation.
Well, welcome to another Did You Know? Well, we got a lot to talk about today. I brought my good friend back on, Phyllis Hicks, and I brought her on before, and we're going to talk some more today about health. I got a lot of comments when I had her on before when she talked about kidneys and how it affects the Black community. So what I'm going to do is, before I bring her on, I have a few things I want to say. Ladies and gentlemen, just explain this to me. Last Sunday night, there was a match on the White House grounds. Now, just explain to me, at the end, one of the fighters that won the fight, instead of just getting up and saying some wonderful things about the fight, what was the need for him to say that the former First Lady of the United States of America, Michelle Obama, was a man? What is even the logic about that? What was even the purpose of saying it? Now, I know they were saying it to some people, but why? But why? And I want you to ask yourself that. Why? What was the purpose? And they hoped that people would cheer for it. My point, and I want you to think about it, not me, you. What was the purpose behind that? Why was it even necessary? And why do we seem to allow or continue to allow folks to venerate women of color? Why do we continue to allow that? And we should not allow it. And you see, it's about respect for them, but it's about respect for you as well. So I just want you to think about that. And this is a woman that was the First Lady of the United States of America. And somebody felt the need to say that. That to me is crazy. But this is my point. But why? What was the reason behind that? Number two, I think you all understand that we better get ourselves together. We better start forming the coalitions, not tomorrow, but today. Those of us who don't like each other, guess what? We don't have a choice but to get together. So it's not about you liking me or I'm liking you. It's about now, ladies and gentlemen, about we don't have a choice but join ourselves together. Because we are in a major fight in this country in terms of politically, economically, and socially. And if we don't take heed to that, then shame on us. You know, this weekend I went to a conference, a leadership conference, and I found it very interesting because one of the people that brought something up, and I thought it was very interesting. Back to the civil rights era, when many things was happened to us, we either protested or we even made some noise about it. Now there's people who are kicking us to the left and kick us to the right. We don't say anything. But guess what? We don't have a choice. So I'm asking all of you, starting today, let's start to build coalitions. Some of you have not spoken in a long time. Guess what? We don't have a choice. You don't have to like me and I don't have to like you. But we're still on the same journey and we don't have a choice but to hold hands and pull each other up. Because I keep telling all of you, it's like, just think about the Titanic. Put yourself on that boat. When the boat sunk, the whole boat went down. Everybody, not just half stayed up and half stayed down. So we are on this boat together. So we're either going to sink or we're going to swim. And we're going to swim together, right? So I just want you to think about that. The other thing, I keep telling you, we're going to have to register to vote. We're going to have to support people that support us, because I think that's very important. Everybody keeps talking about the plan of action for the 2026 midterm elections and the strategies and things of that nature. And so you're going to have to start figuring out who we're going to support, who we're going to vote for, national, state, and local, who's in the best interest of us. We now have to start voting for people that has our best interest. If we don't, then shame on us, because you can see what's happening. People say things about us, talk to us, and treat us anyway. And if we continue to allow that, then that's on us. I respect everybody, but everybody's going to respect me as well, and they should respect us. So respect us as a people. I always talk about history, and I think some things are very important. And so, I just throw some names out, and I just want you to do some research. I mix it up. If I say Dr. Charles Drew, who is he? Go find out who he is. Josephine Baker, who is she? Who's Josephine Baker? Find that out. John Carlos, who's that? Because I keep trying to tell you is that we have to control our own narrative in history. If you don't know your history, then shame on you. Why do you expect somebody else going to tell you who it is? You can see now they're trying to wipe history away. They're trying to take history as if we never existed or we were never a part of it. But we were a part of history. So we're going to have to do three things. We're going to have to start doing our own research on history, and we're going to have to tell our story on history, and we're going to have to speak loud and tell everybody how we contributed. When you think about World War I, you think about World War II, you think of the Civil War, we played or the Vietnam War or the Korean War. We played a very significant part, but nobody would never know that we did. No one would never know that we played a part at all. And so, therefore, I think it becomes on us to start telling our history. But I'm going to bring this up every time now. Churches, social order, attorneys, we all have to get together and like we used to and start to communicate. We can have philosophical differences. We can have religious differences. But one thing we do have in common, color. DNA, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't change it. You can act, then you change your name, you can do everything you want, but certain DNA is in you. So I'm going to start promoting now. We got to work together. Because why? Because then you won't have things like having people to say at a boxing match, the disrespect the First Lady, the President of the United States, and say this woman is a man. We shouldn't allow it, and we should not put up with it. And from now on, we need to tell people you're going to respect us. You don't have to like me, but you're going to respect me. So that's where I'm going to leave that at today, because I got so much more to talk about today. And so I'm going to talk about health. And I'm going to bring Phyllis on many more times, because health is so important, because we don't take health serious sometimes. I have friends that would be here today if they just would have taken care of their health. Yeah. I have friends that they don't go to the doctor till it's too late. And the doctor tell her, well, if you came last week, you might have lived a day or two. But since you only came today, bye. And I know how it is, and I know about the disparity of this. So I brought Phyllis back on because I got so many things when she talked about kidneys, when she talked about the whole thing, about, people giving up kidneys and all those things. And people called me up and told me about it. And, you would be surprised that people go through many different things. So I brought my good friend Phyllis on, and we're going to talk about some preventive things and wellness of African-American community. So Phyllis, you got it.
Good morning, Richard. Thank you for having me on again. It's always a pleasure. As I was listening to you, I thought about growing up in the segregated South as a child. I thought about the lessons that my mother um, and my parents, both of us, especially my mother and my aunt, who were both educators, taught me. And one of the things that I had to do was to learn quotes and to speak at church and do public speaking. And as you were talking, I thought, you know what? Living well is the best revenge. We are living history. The best thing that we can do to continue to thrive in these challenging times is to stay alive, stay well, be able to go vote, make our voices heard, and be able to advocate for ourselves. And then you also mentioned DNA, and that's one of the things that we'll talk a little bit about today about um, some of the inherited and genetic conditions that are challenging for us. So today I'm going to focus on how important your heart health is to your kidney health and your overall health. So, just a quick review: that the heart is a big muscle. It sits in the middle of the chest. It's a pump. It's a muscle. And so, one of the things that people will ask, why can't we just have an artificial kidney the same way we have an artificial heart? And the artificial heart is basically a big pump that moves the blood in and out, back and forth. The kidneys do so much more. So, just a quick review. Heart's a big pump, sits in the middle of the chest. Blood comes in, blood goes out, it goes to the organs. But the blood that's coming in and out is being filtered through the kidneys. It's being affected by the pancreas. And I say those two organs in particular because the kidney is really important in regulating fluid balance and blood pressure. And the pancreas is really important in regulating insulin and blood sugar. So when you think about the kidney, we think about blood pressure control, the kidneys and the heart together. And then when you think about the pancreas, we think about insulin, that's diabetes. We do know that the two major factors in chronic kidney disease that can lead to dialysis are high blood pressure and diabetes. So, in order for your blood pressure to be controlled and regulated, your heart has to work well. It has to be a good pump. It has to get the blood in and the blood out. It's got to be effective in how it does it. And so, what's really important is to eat well, drink water, make the best decisions that you can. As Richard said, go to the doctor. As we know, going to the physician, going to the doctor, the provider, the nurse practitioner, the physician's assistant, the nurses, the healthcare folks, traditionally and historically for us, it has not been something that was always a priority. I know that where I grew up, you went to the hospital to die. I'm just going to be honest. I was a little kid in the South. You went to the hospital to die. If you were able to stay home and manage your health care, that was the optimal way to do it. And so many times there was a reticence, a reluctance to trust the healthcare system because so often by the time we interfaced with them, we were in the process of dying. And some of that was on the system, but some of that was on us because we need to be able to go to the physician, to the healthcare provider sooner and say, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on. What do I need to do? How can we work together for me to have optimal health? But we can't give it over to somebody. Don't give your health over to anyone. You're responsible for that. You're responsible for making certain that your blood pressure is under control, that you're taking your medication, that you're drinking water, that you're managing your diet. And managing your diet doesn't mean no salt. It means low salt. It means picking your battles. Saying, I'm going to have this little bit of something, but I know for the rest of the day, I'm going to have to really be careful. That's realistic. For me to sit here like I'm a dietitian and saying, keep your sodium down to these levels and your potassium down to these levels and don't deviate at all, it's not realistic. We don't live in that kind of world. And often we don't live with those kind of choices. So many of us live in food deserts. I don't at the moment, but I have. And so going to the corner store to make dinner oftentimes included packaged foods and canned foods, not a lot of fresh produce. And if it was there, it was expensive. And when you're living on a budget, that can be an issue. Fortunately, we live in central Pennsylvania. And for those of you listening who are in the Harrisburg area, you've got the Broadseat Market. You've got the Farm Show on Cameron Street. You can get to the West Shore Market if you have access to transportation and a car. There is the Amish community that is less than an hour away. Lots of options. I've got people that I go to buy when eggs were a problem, not a problem for me, But I was fortunate. I could get in my car, drive to this Amish lady that I know, and get all the eggs I wanted. Everybody doesn't have that option. I haven't always had that option. When my husband was in graduate school, we lived in Philadelphia. I rode the bus to work. I took the subway. I took the bus to the grocery store. Anybody who knows what it's like juggling bags on the bus knows it's not easy. Walking from your house to the store, walking is not so bad, but trying to walk back with 4 bags, and some of them are canned goods and bananas and other heavy things, it's a challenge. So my challenge to us today is to really start to think about what being healthy means for you. It means something different from you than it does for me, than it does for Richard. What does it mean for you? If you are dealing with chronic conditions like high blood pressure, it means that you really need to have a blood pressure cuff, a blood pressure monitor, and they're available. You can find them. It means that if you have high blood pressure, you're taking your blood pressure generally at the same time, preferably in the morning, sitting down. As a general rule, you can be lying down, but generally we take it sitting. Go to the doctor's office, you're sitting. Most of the time we do that. So if you can take it sitting, take it close to the same time every day. Take your medications close to the same time every day. Now, if your medications don't feel right, talk to your doctor about that. It is important. You got to trust yourself. And I'm going to share a personal story. I have high blood pressure, and I'm on a medication. My brother is on the exact same medication that I am. He's 4 years younger. He lives in Tennessee. We don't see the same doctor. We didn't have any idea this was going on. We're on the exact same medication, the exact same dose. My mother had high blood pressure, so I kind of knew it might be coming. So I say all that to say that there can be, when you know your family history, if you have a family member, especially a close family member, parent, mother, father, and uncle, that has a high blood pressure or diabetes, you should be kind of being a detective, be on vigilant, be on the lookout, saying, let me make certain that I'm taking my blood pressure every now and then. Even if you have not been diagnosed yet, make certain you're going to the physician to have them check it. So as taking my medication, and I noticed one day when I picked it up, the pill looked different. So I asked the pharmacist, and he said, well, my insurance company was now using a different provider. I said, okay. I mean, I'm a nurse. I've worked in pharmaceuticals. So I thought, okay, if it's got all the things I need, it's a different company, fine. So I started taking this medication. Just didn't feel right. About 3 weeks in, I'm like, this just doesn't feel right to me. Now, there's something called non-medical switching, and that's a whole nother separate story. But that's when insurance companies will use a different company because they they make a deal, and they get a better price. It's just the way it is. And if it's the same formulation, it should work, but doesn't always for everybody. So I went to my pharmacist and I said, this isn't working for me. So he explained to me that the pharmaceutical company the insurance company was using a different pharmacy. I said, I don't like this. I want to go back to my original company. So he worked with me. So I didn't have to change anything. I said, I don't want to stroke out. I don't want to end up in the hospital. Something's not right. So I was able to get back with the original carrier. The difference was, instead of taking one 10 milligram pill, I now take 2 5 milligram pills. Same company, same formulation, and I'm doing fine. But I say this to say to you, if it doesn't feel right, talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist. It may not be your imagination. You know your body, trust your instincts. So, personal story that I just wanted to share to kind of make it real, keep it real, because Richard likes to do that. We like to keep it real. It's important that you do that, because high blood pressure, strokes, heart disease are at a higher level in the community of color with Black folks. Diabetes is the same thing. I'm not diabetic, but I can tell you that I do know that people who are, it's a constant struggle trying to manage that diet. High blood pressure, diabetes, manage that diet. And if you have both, you're really at risk for your kidneys just not being able to work properly and being on dialysis. Hopefully you can get a transplant. But even if you get a transplant, your high blood pressure and your diabetes do not go away. So even if you get a transplant, you have to now continue to manage your diabetes and your high blood pressure. Your kidneys are working again. You got the gift of life. Take care of them. So heart and kidneys and the pancreas, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease are all related. And they're all things that can take us off the planet. And for people of color, It's happening on a regular basis. So just because you go to dialysis and you get your fluid removed and you get your blood cleansed and put back in, and you're living as best you can that way, looking for a transplant, hopefully, but managing your life, understand that that's just one part of it. That's just one part of taking care of yourself. Taking care of yourself emotionally, dealing with the anxiety, the depression, the sadness, the worry. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to be able to afford my meds? How am I going to be able to see my grandchildren, go to graduation? Want to buy them a graduation present. Still got to buy my medication. Still got to get to dialysis Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Still got transportation. We are now having issues with gasoline. Gas costs more. So if you are getting a ride with somebody or driving, it's costing you more to get to dialysis. And guess what? The reimbursal generally from the programs that reimburse you, that's not keeping up with inflation. So you're paying the same amount that you're getting in terms of what you're receiving back for compensation, but your fare may be going up, or you get in an Uber and the price is more. There's a lot going on. And so taking care of yourself, being responsible for your health is huge. I am committed as a nurse and as the Chief Executive Officer of the Kidney Foundation of Central Pennsylvania to helping people live their best lives, whatever that looks like. Personally, I want everybody who's on dialysis to get a transplant. And I talk to people at the major dialysis companies who are interested in that also. That's a component. And I believe them when they say they're interested in helping people get transplants. And they have fabulous social workers and nurses, dietitians, center directors, physicians that are working in collaboration with people to do that. But you know who gets transplanted? The squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And we're being transplanted less. Part of the reason is because we mentioned this with Richard earlier on the earlier podcast, is that people don't want to ask for kidney. They don't want to say, oh, I don't want to ask my mother, my aunt, well, maybe not their mother, depending on their age, because we really do try to match up kidneys with young people get young kidneys. And if you're more mature, probably a more mature kidney. But we don't like to ask our family members for kidneys. And we have to do a better job at that because we're not being transplanted with living donors at the rate that some other populations are. We are getting cadaver donors, and a kidney is a kidney. And thank God that you get a kidney because you can get off that machine, you can travel and live your best life, and it's life-changing. Transplantation is the optimal treatment for chronic kidney disease. It is the best thing if you're on dialysis to move you forward and elongate your life. Dialysis is kind of like a stepping stone. It will help you get from here to there, but that should always be our goal, is to get transplanted. So back to my original thing, and I'm gonna let Richard ask some questions if he has them. I'm sure he has them, but I say if. But an artificial kidney is not a simple thing. And I think that what people don't realize is that the kidneys do more than just take fluid on and off the body. They basically have a lot to do with the electrolytes that we need, sodium and potassium. They are involved in the hormonal system, which has to do with, it's called renin-angiotensin, but basically it helps regulate blood pressure. The kidneys do so much more than just take fluid off the body that we don't need. It does that, and that's important, but it does so much more. And so it would be like saying, trying to describe the kidney is like, think of your car engine. It has a lot of moving parts, and the kidney has a lot of parts in it like that. So the kidney is more like a car engine. It's got lots of moving parts, where the heart, as critical as it is, and as essential as it is to life, is basically a pump. Pumps fluid in, pumps fluid out, pumps fluid in, pumps fluid out. As long as that pump is working appropriately and both sides are working together in tandem to make this go at the same time, the fluid's going, blood's going out, blood's coming in, pumps working together. It's a pump. The kidneys are so much more than just an excretory system. And so it's much more complex to try to develop an artificial kidney. We still aren't there yet. The pancreas, got to throw a little something out there about the pancreas because it manages glucose and insulin, which is high blood pressure, but it also has effect on digestion. So it actually sends enzymes kind of right into the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine right off the stomach. And when that's not working, it can interfere with digestion as well. So the pancreas, the kidney, the heart, they all work in tandem together to keep us healthy. And we need to do our part to manage it. Manage your blood pressure, manage your blood sugar, make certain that you're listening to your doctor and paying attention to your heart. That's why a lot of times your heart doctor wants to have the kidney doctor look at you too. Your kidney doctor wants to talk to your heart doctor. We're doing a lot more collaboration between heart doctors and kidney doctors. And that's the reason, because they are so interrelated. We need both of them to work well and to work properly. And you have to be working with both of them to make certain that you're optimizing your health. Can't control your DNA. If you have juvenile diabetes, that's an autoimmune disease. We do know that. A lot of that, it has a genetic component, not completely, but it does have a genetic component to it. Juvenile diabetes happens when you're much younger. It can be a real challenge, especially when you're a young person, to manage your diet and your insulin. So many better techniques to do that. Type 2, which is the adult onset diabetes that a lot of us live with and talk about. What we have to remember about diabetes is so insidious, is that it isn't just that it affects you on a macro level, like your heart and your kidneys, but it affects you on a micro level, like your blood vessels. And so when the sugar isn't regulated, when your glucose isn't regulated correctly, it affects those little capillaries, those little blood vessels that bring the oxygenation and the nutrients to us on a on the cellular level. And so if we aren't managing that well, then we develop what I call the apathies, the neuropathy, your brain, the nephropathy, your kidneys, all the cardiopathy, your heart. So when you say apathy, it basically is saying it's not working right, it's not working the way it should, and it's being adversely affected in some way. So manage your blood pressure, manage your blood sugar, take your pulse. And now we have a lot of devices that will tell you your pulse rate. They will tell you your oxygenation level. That was a big thing in COVID. We had the pulse oximetry. We wanted to know how much oxygen. Preferably, we want it to be at 98 to 100%. If it drops down below a certain level, then the doctor's going to say you need to come in. And I'm not going to tell you what that level is, because it can be different if you have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease like asthma, or you're a smoker, or you have some other conditions. But as a general rule, we want to keep that oxygenation level in the 90s, 94 and above. That's not true for everybody, so talk to your doctor about it. There are some people who are living perfectly good lives with oxygenation levels that are lower than that, and that's normal for them. The good nurse in me, and the nurse educator, because I taught nursing students, is that you always want to give people information, but I never want to say to somebody, I am the absolute expert and the last word. That's God. He's the last word. He's the expert. The rest of us work in collaboration with each other to try to develop treatment plans and optimize care, and work together over disciplines and try to figure out what's going to be in the best interest of you. Because when I'm looking at you and talking to you, it doesn't matter what else I know about anybody else. I used to teach my nursing students when they would talk about their day and how good a day they had. And I was like, you know what? That's great. But your best day is only as good as your best day. Nobody cares how good you were yesterday. Nobody cares about how good you were an hour ago. What we care about is, are you providing your best right here, right now, under these circumstances, to the person in front of you? And that's what's really important to me. And that's the message I like to share as Executive Director of the Kidney Foundation of Central Pennsylvania.
Phyllis, answer this for me. Why don't we don't like to talk about health?
Right.
For whatever reason. We could talk about sports. We could talk about many other things, but we don't talk about health. It seems like health is always like, when I talk about health, it ain't good. It ain't good. It's not positive. Answer this question for me. Why do you think it's important? Because we don't talk about health, but why do you think it's important for us to know some of the history or DNA about our family members? A lot of people, you go to the doctor and they ask you,
Mhm.
did your dad die from this? Did your
Mhm.
grandperson die from that? And a lot of times you don't even know.
Mhm.
You have no idea. So why is it important as best you can to
Right.
try to know that information?
Oh, great question. Thank you, Richard. First of all, let me answer in two parts. Why don't we talk about it? I think it, from my experience, goes back to the way I grew up. I can only speak for myself, but I grew up in the South with a lot of extended family, and it was, what was your business and what wasn't your business, and stay out of other people's business, and don't talk about these things. We know that this happened, that this person went to the hospital. I really don't know why. Well, that's none of your business. And so I think that in the community of color, in terms of my experience, is we try to stay out of the dozens. We try to stay out of other people's business. We don't like to talk about it. It's not our business. If they want you to know, they'll tell you. But a lot of times I think that has come back to bite us in an uncomfortable place because we don't know. I have relatives that I don't know why my great aunt died. I know she did. Looking back now on some of the symptoms as a nurse putting it together, I think she probably had some form of cancer, a wasting disease, as they used to call it. But I don't know. We didn't talk about it. That wasn't our business. And so I can't say to somebody, I know for sure that I have this history in my family. Now, I do know what my mother died of. I know what my father died of. I don't know what a lot of my grandparents or extended family, what affected their quality of life and what might have been the ultimate cause of their demise. Now, I do know that my mother's mother and her daughter, my mother's only biological sister, died of diphtheria, which is why I get so concerned about people who are these vaccine deniers and saying we don't need to get vaccines for measles, mumps, diphtheria, whooping cough. We're starting to see an uptick in those kind of preventable diseases because you've got people who are these vaccine deniers. To me, that's like saying the earth is flat, and it makes no sense to me. It is something that goes beyond a reasonable conversation that you can have with people. So I try not to get caught up in that. But when I think of my grandmother and aunt that I never knew, that died from a totally preventable disease, and people today who won't protect their families and their children, that just is unbelievable to me. So the same thing during COVID, people who wouldn't get the vaccine because they thought the vaccine had nano tech in it, or they thought somebody was going to put something in it. It goes beyond, it defies logic. So all we can do with that is to just make certain we're informed. So Richard, to answer the second part of your question, the best thing we can do, and I've started to do it, and my kids are really good at this, is to be better historians and to ask questions. My relatives that are still alive, I've started to ask them, what did Uncle Baby die of? What did great Uncle Bud, die of? What kind of chronic diseases might be in the family that we haven't talked about? And so even if they don't know, I'll ask them to describe some of the symptoms, and then I'll go, okay. So now when I go to the doctor, I don't have the Mayflower list, like some of my colleagues that are Caucasian. I call it the Mayflower list. They have it on their walls. Oh, my parents came over in 1622. My parents were on the Mayflower. Well, sometimes I'm thinking I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, because the people on the Mayflower were, if life had been so good where they were, they never would have left, right? So but that's what I call it. We don't have that kind of history, and it's deliberate. We weren't allowed to read. We weren't allowed to write. We had to talk about so many things, and it was hidden. If you were trying to sell a slave, you didn't want them to know that their family, that the mother had, died of a wasting disease or had something happen. So you weren't going to make certain that they knew about their own history. And oftentimes, Richard, I think that we don't talk about it because we have this false sense of respect. We want to respect their privacy. We don't want to make them uncomfortable. And I think we've got to move away from that. My children have to know. I have to tell them everything I know about my ancestors on my side, on my husband's side. I've had some people that have been reticent about that, and I respect that. But I'm like, this is not about you. This is about this next generation of children and grandchildren and great grandchildren and the great greats after that need to know where they came from and who they are, not just the historical perspective. And we need that too. We need to know about the contributions of our ancestors. And we need to know that historically we are dealing with a system that has been discriminatory, that has been racist, that has experimented on us, that has treated us as subhuman people. That is a part of our history. No matter how it is attempted to be suppressed, it cannot be. I have history from the Cherokee Nation, and so I am interested in hearing about that suppression, smallpox blankets, so that we can eradicate a whole nations and nations of people. Introducing them to alcohol because they didn't have the receptors to be able to process it because it wasn't something that was a part of their culture. So we have to ask these questions.
But you know what? As you talked, I looked at something a few weeks ago, and I'm gonna tie in terms of health, but I'm gonna tie it in terms of history and understanding certain things. I went back and I looked at my parents' side, and they grew up in the South Carolina.
Okay,
And I looked at on my mom's side where they were sharecroppers, and I looked at the lifestyle that they lived, and people don't realize the structure and the strength that they had. And this is what I mean: when they worked the fields, people don't realize whatever chemicals was in the fields, and they were on their hands picking the tobacco or whatever, it affected them.
Yes.
Or they don't know about working sun up to sundown, and they did not drink that water, so therefore they got dehydrated. Or back in the day when I was growing up, they used to try to give you this salt pill when you were an athlete. It was probably a huge pill. They gave you a huge pill and said, okay. So I understand back then ignorance was there, and there's a lot of things that people didn't know. But now that also justifies in you understanding your family and what they went through, because I've been reading and says, so think about it. When people were picking cotton and they didn't pick it right, all those jags in their hands, the dirt and whatever, that affected them. So health has always been a very unique thing when it comes to people of color, of what they experience. Because I agree with you. When I was growing up, you almost had to be dying to go to the doctor, and you almost had to be dead to go to the hospital because they thought castor oil or whatever was going to heal all. And not only that, but you go back and you look at health and government and research. It's not always been kind to people of color, because we, people of color, period, have always been the guinea pigs of research, and it has not always been positive. We have always been I used to see people of color has always been on the cutting edge of health research. And since they've been on the cutting edge of research, that's why I think it's very important to bring people on like you to share things that we don't want to talk about. Or one day I'm going to bring Uncle, we don't want to talk about mental health, because we all have people that we always used to say my uncle was crazy. But we now realize he was, but he had a mental health problem. Right. But we didn't look at it that way. And so it's very important for us to use the tools that we have, for people to get as much health care as they can. I was in a meeting today, organization, and the issue came up, the cost of health care. and the institution that's providing it, can we pay the premium for the people to get that? And as the costs continue to go up and go up for medical treatment and medical costs, and a lot of places they don't really understand. Some of you did not like Obamacare, but now y'all realize that it wasn't as bad as you thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
So my other question to you is,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of gave us the kind of the connection of the heart, the kidney, the pancreas, and all of that. And some other time we'll talk about the brain. But explain to my audience that not those things, but the things that are contribute to it. And one of the things that people don't understand, stress.
Yes.
And could you explain to my audience the importance of how, as best you can,
Mm-hmm.
how you can try to manage stress? Because stress kills a lot of us, and it kills us a lot in many ways.
Wow, Richard, thank you for that, because that's critical. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. Well, let's talk about the role of stress. We talked about blood vessels and how we try to keep them open for perfusion, for the heart, the kidneys, the pancreas, and all that sort of stuff. The importance of blood pressure control. So stress is really a critical part of that conversation, because we know that the brain is an important part of healthy regulation of our organs, our tissues. The brain is more than just emotions. It is also regulation in terms of how we control our blood pressure and hormones and all of those things. So stress can cause our blood vessels to narrow, to become what we call constricted. And that can make the blood flow more challenging. Now, stress, man, oh man, stress is such an interesting term, because stress means that I'm feeling maybe slightly out of imbalance. The critical thing to remember is that stress isn't inherently, in and of itself, a bad thing. I call some things healthy anxiety. When I prepared for this program, I had a little healthy anxiety. Healthy anxiety helped me to make certain I did my research and I hit the talking points and I made certain I included this and I made certain I highlighted that. I call that healthy anxiety. That's when I take the stress and make it work for me. Richard and I make this look easy, but let me tell you something. This is not an easy thing to do. To come before, actually, they make it easy. They make it really easy to come into the studio and do this show. And I have no idea how stressful it is in the background. I'm sure there's lots of stress that goes on behind the scenes. But stress inherently is not a bad thing. How you manage it and how you make it work for you, because you can make it work for you. And this is what I try to do in my own life and to share. One of the things you can do to manage stress, there's several things. One of the things I do to manage stress is I stretch. I have these stretching exercises. I should do them every single morning for 5 to 7 minutes. I've got this whole outline. Sometimes I'm like, I just can't do it in the morning. So I try to do it at lunchtime. Sometimes I have some days where I just don't make it. But walking is my thing. So people go to the gym. I know people who go to the gym and they get those endorphins. Endorphins are natural highs. Our body, our brain has pleasure centers. It likes to feel good. We like to feel happy. We like to feel good. And so people who go to the gym, there's some people who go to the gym because they're actually addicted to the endorphins that they get from exercising. I have never had that experience. I have never invested enough to have those kind of endorphins. So I applaud people who do. But I do enjoy a good brisk walk. I enjoy looking at the sunshine. I enjoy the wind and the trees. And so when I'm stressed, I try to go for a walk, maybe a short walk, depending on how much time I have or what my next obligation is. But the way to manage stress is to find what works for you. Is it a walk? Is it going to the gym? Is it knitting? Is it crocheting? Is it gardening? Is it journaling? Is it talking to your grandbaby? Is it laughing? Is it singing? Is it, for me, dancing to the oldies? I mean, I can keep up with some of the young music, and some of it I like and some of it I don't. But dancing for me is another way of exercising. So I'm releasing those endorphins and it makes me happy. And I sing those lyrics and I'm like, oh, because I can actually understand the words. So, you can tell I'm a woman of a certain age because I'm kind of talking about the difference in the music. But stress is insidious. We live in a stressful environment. We always have, Richard. Our ancestors had stress that we cannot even imagine. We really are blessed to live in a time, even though it's a challenging time, and we're reliving history. 123 years ago, a Democratic president came into office named Woodrow Wilson, fired all the Black folks that had federal jobs except two, and showed birth of a nation in the White House 123 years ago. So what's old is new again. So we lived through that. We thrived. We will again. Now, what happens is when people of color thrive, it becomes the backlash. Obama was president. People rejoiced. Now we have the backlash. We had Black Wall Street. People rejoiced. Then there was the backlash. I guarantee you that there will always be a backlash because the optimal thing is to always have an other. It is unfortunate. It's as old as time and as old as the garden, and we're easily identified. I've got some friends that are Jewish and Puerto Rican and all kinds of ethnicities, but you know what? They don't have a lot of melanin in their skin. Some of them do, but some of them don't. And the ones that don't kind of move between two worlds, and they talk about that. That's a whole nother podcast. People who move between two worlds. They identify strongly with the culture, but they can pass for the other culture. So they miss the being followed around in the store. They are not targeted and identified as you're going to be a shoplifter because you walk in. But if that person, they had a little more melanin in their skin, then suddenly they're followed. I was followed the other day. I was just like, well, they're going to have a good time following me. I'm going to turn around. At one point I turned around and said, do you work here? I have a question for you. No, I don't. I was like, oh, well, you seem to know this department so well. I was sure you worked here. So they went somewhere else. But, when you got melanin in our skin, it's a double-edged sword. Melanin protects us, but it also identifies us and targets us. Now, when it comes to stress, we've got to be targeted in how we manage it. We've got to decide that we're going to make it work for us. Stress cannot be avoided. If you're trying to figure out how to pay your bills, that's stressful. So what you do is you sit down and you try to figure out what you've got to do and how you've got to do it. Do you need to borrow something from Aunt Susie? Do you need to try to move the paycheck a little further? Do you need to? For me, it's like not buying yarn this pay period. And I have first world problems. That my biggest thing is, oh, well, I guess I don't need to buy any more yarn. I mean, I'm really not trying to minimize the issue, but I'm saying that we all have choices that we make. And so as we make these choices, we figure out how to manage that stress. If I go over my budget, I'm going to be stressed because I'm like, now I got to tell my husband why I don't have enough money to make it to the next pay period. That's stressful for me. I'd rather not do that. So I'm like, I'm not gonna spend this money that I can't afford. We all have to make those decisions. Don't spend on things you can't afford, and spend on things that you can afford in a way that brings you pleasure and brings down the stress. Eat well. If you're not healthy, you're going to feel stressful. When you go to the market, learn some other ways to make a kale salad. You don't have to just cook them and make collard greens. You can take kale and collard greens. I had a collard green salad the other day, and I was like, I never even thought about doing this. It was something that never occurred to me, and it was tasty mixed in with a bunch of other stuff. So go online and look for new recipes. Get fresh ingredients. I was eating a radish again for the first time. I'd forgotten how much I like radishes. Now, you got to like radishes and rutabagas. They're an acquired taste. Everybody doesn't like them. But it brought back memories from my childhood, from being a girl, going out in the garden, picking that radish, picking the carrot, picking the tomatoes off the vine. If you can have a little bit of a space in your apartment, in your house, get a planter, grow some basil, grow some rosemary, grow a tomato plant, grow some chives. There's nothing like cutting the chives off your own little plant and sprinkling them in your salad or on your chicken or on your fish or whatever you're eating. So to answer your question, I'd love to talk. Richard and I are a good combination because we both like to do this. But look at what works for you. The seeds of every problem has within itself its own solution. So if you have stress, try to identify what the stressor is. Are you worried about the bills? Well, a lot of us have that stress. We're worried about the bills. Are you worried about your job? I mean, I just hear constantly about places that are laying people off and downsizing. Are you worried about your children? A lot of that you just have to take to Jesus. You just have to talk to God about, because we can't control a lot of that. We have to be the best people we could be. Living well really is the best thing you can do. Optimizing your health, taking care of yourself, That's the best thing you can do. So to manage your stress, and I hope I'm answering this question, is first of all, identify the stressor. Because I could tell you all kinds of options for managing stress that work for me, but you're not having the same stress for the same reason as I am. So you got to figure out what you're feeling stressed about. Are you looking for a transplant? Do you feel like you'll never get on dialysis? Would you rather have a living donor than a cadaver donor? Are you concerned about the length of surgery? Identify the stress and then go about taking it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Take a little piece of that and say, oh, what I'm really most worried about is having enough money. That's a big one. Is having enough money to be able to get to dialysis this week. So one of the things you can do is go in and talk to your social worker. There is a chronic renal transportation program through the Commonwealth. There are other organizations that provide emergency funds. Not a lot of money out there, but there are options. So the first thing you got to do to manage your stress is to identify it. And once you identify it, then you can start to think about what worked when I felt this way before. What worked when I heard my cousin talking about it and she tried it and it worked. Let me try this and see if it works. If it doesn't work, like with the medication they switched me to that didn't work, I was like, oh no, this isn't working. We got to do something else. So trust yourself to know that you're telling yourself your own truth. For me, faith is a big part of managing stress. I talk to Jesus about it. I go to God and say, did it again, messed up, don't know what I was thinking. I need your help. And that's a huge way for me to manage my stress.
Well, that's the reason why I brought up the word stress, was because, this program is Did You Know? And the object of this program is to let people see other people going through this or going through that. So the reason I brought up stress is because all of us go through stress.
Mm-hmm.
But by you articulating some of the things, people may say, I never thought about that. Or, I never thought about a relaxing way to relieve stress.
Mm-hmm.
Or they may think they're the only ones that have stress.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know everybody does. So I try to relate to it. And I want my audience to relate to somebody sitting there going today saying, you know what, I have stress. I ain't the only one that got it. Because I want people to feel very, very, very comfortable. The other thing is, the only issue I have with our little program, it just seems to go so fast all the time because it's almost over. So I'm sorry, audience. That's why I'm going to keep bringing her on, because we're going to be talking about a lot of health stuff because we don't really deal with it. For the next couple minutes, what are some of the other things that you think important that you want to tell my audience? I mean, and I'll give you an example and I'll let you run with it. I have friends and have had friends that had prescriptions that did not take the prescriptions.
Mm-hmm.
I had friends that because maybe they couldn't afford it or they cut back on it or they didn't do this and that. I'd like for you to leave my audience with the importance of they are somewhat responsible for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to learn to hold whoever accountable, whether it's the pharmacist, whether it's the doctor, or whoever. To explain to my audience the importance of health.
I think we all have to make a decision. Do you want to live? And this is a basic question. We assume that people are automatically going to say yes. But I will tell you, from my experience as CEO of the Kidney Foundation of Central PA, there are some people who choose to go off dialysis and go into hospice. They choose to die for whatever reason. It's a personal choice. It breaks my heart sometimes, but at the same time, I've come to appreciate that people have to choose. My question to you, do you want to live? Do you want to live? And once you answer that question about whether you want to live or not, then you can go to the next question is, what do I have to do to live my best life? Not my mother's, not my father's. All of that is a part of it. Not my husband, not my children, not my wife, not my brother, not my sister. Do I want to live? What are the things I can do to make certain that I live? And then I think you have to have an honest assessment. You can write it down on a piece of paper nobody ever sees. You can burn it later. You can share it or not. But you need to write down what you need to do to live. It may be go to the doctor, have my checkup, lose 10 pounds or more, drink more water, exercise 5 minutes a day, take my medication, whether I think I need it or not, for a month just to see if I feel better. Run this little experiment in my own life. Talk about how I'm feeling with somebody I trust, with a friend, with a church member, with a family member, with God. Maybe nobody else has to hear it. Be honest in your assessment of what you want to do with your life and how you want to do it. And never, ever, ever give up. Don't ever. Winston Churchill said it in World War II. Never, ever, ever give up. But be honest with yourself. Be honest to the degree that you can with others. Got to keep yourself safe. Trust your judgment. Manage your stress. Remember the importance of early detection, going to the doctor and having everything checked out. Ask questions. Have a journal. Write questions down in your journal. When I go to the doctor, I'm going to ask him, why do I have to take my blood pressure medicine? What happens if I don't? What other choices do I have? If I lose 20 pounds, will that make a difference? Are there foods I can eat that will help? Remember that when our body is out of sync, it's not just one organ, it's affecting everything. Whether it's your brain and your neurotransmitters or your hormones, whether it's your kidneys, your heart, your liver, your pancreas, if something's not working right, it's all affected. So we live in an age and in a country that does offer us some options, but we have to optimize those. We have health insurance. It's not great. It's not the best. But if you go to a hospital or emergency room, you're going to get care. You're going to get some kind of care, maybe just stabilizing, but you're going to get some kind of care. How are we doing on time here? I got another minute or two. I love preaching to the choir, but I also love saying to people, share this message. Go out. If somebody didn't hear this message today, you say, "Oh, you missed Richard's podcast, which is what's it called?
Did you know?
Did you know? You missed Did You Know today, girl? Let me tell you. Did you know? Did you know that the kidney does so much more than just filter water out? That it's not that easy to have an artificial one because it regulates acid-base balance, because there is hormones involved. Blood pressure is important. Did you know that when the pancreas doesn't work right and glucose isn't being taken out of the cells and there's too much sugar, that it can really affect the capillaries, and that's what can eventually lead to the big problem of not enough circulation and amputation? Did you know that the brain has neurotransmitters that are endorphins, which are natural kind of hormones that make us feel good, the same kind of things you get when you're addicted to some of the other substances that aren't good for you? But we're hardwired for pleasure. We were made to enjoy this planet, to enjoy life. And I don't know other people's faith backgrounds, and I respect that. But in my faith background, we believe that we were made in the image of God, and He said it's a good thing. And He wants us to enjoy life, and He wants us to live long and prosper. This is now tag you're it. Tag you're it. Do you want to live?
Thank you. And we're going to leave on that this evening. Do you want to live, and what you going to do about it? So thank you for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for watching Did You Know with Richard Utley. Please mark your calendar and join us every first and third Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube. Did you know? If you would like to be a guest on the show, or if you have an interesting topic or individual that you would like to see us discuss during future broadcasts, you can reach out to us on Facebook at Richard Utley. Until next time, have a nice day, and we will see you again for another Did You Know, and can be found on most of your favorite social media platforms.